Okay, good evening, everybody. We'll get started here in just 1 minute. Okay, just share my other screen. Okay, are folks seeing my screen? Great. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for a design subcommittee meeting of the Boston Civic Design Commission. Today's date is Tuesday, July 15th, and this is session A of the BCDC Design Subcommittee. The planning department continues to host public meetings in a virtual setting for the health, safety, and accessibility of Boston residents. My name is Seth Reisman, Deputy Director of Design Review at the Planning Department. Before we proceed with the agenda, I am required by the open meeting law to notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please turn off your camera and microphone if you do not wish to be recorded. For the record, commissioners present are Commissioner Garland, Gilly Smith, Kim, and we may be expecting Commissioner Love and Morris later this evening. Tonight's agenda will include presentation for the project associated with 100 to 168 New Rutherford Avenue in Charlestown, otherwise known as the Austin Street Lots Development. Tonight's meeting proceedings will begin with a brief presentation from the proponent on updates to the proposed master plan, followed by comments from commissioners. The proponent will give a second presentation focused on, the master plan and design guidelines. And then the proponent will give a second presentation focused on the architecture of building B. We will then take public testimony and end the evening with a discussion on next steps. So a proposed project at this location is seeking Article 80C entitlement and contemplates approximately 800,000 square feet of mixed-use development, including approximately 700 residential units, 1,900 square feet of arts and culture space, 13,500 square feet of commercial space, 14,500 square feet of daycare, 45,000 square feet of indoor recreation space, and approximately 188 off-street parking spaces in 4 buildings on an approximately 5.1 acre site. The applicant also seeks 80B entitlement for a single building within the proposed plan, referred to as Building B. This will be the 5th presentation of the proposed plan and project to the Commission. A reminder to the proponents that each presentation will be limited to 15 minutes. I'll give you a halftime warning and a 1-minute warning. And with that, I invite the proponent team to begin presenting whenever ready.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you, commissioners. My name is Abby Goldenfarb. I'm from Trinity Financial. We really appreciate your taking the time this evening. I am going to turn it over to Kendra Halliwell from Icon Architecture, who's going to walk you through our presentation. It really is in response to all of the great feedback we've received from the community, from the city, as well as from the commissioners. So we hope you are as excited about it as we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
And sorry, Kendra, just as before you get in, I notice Commissioner Morris has joined us. So, Catherine, I'm going to be elevating you to co-host. And sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. I'd love to, well, doing introductions, I want to welcome Jonathan to the commission. It's great to see you here. Okay. We do have a lot to cover. I think, Seth, you laid it out very succinctly. First, we're going to talk through the master plan design, then go over master plan design guidelines, and then we will narrow it down further to building B. get my slides moving. Great. A few comments that we heard previously include a request to further focus on design options for the southern lot, the southern parcel, to further develop the design guidelines for Building B, and then additionally to further distinguish the elements of Building B. So New Rutherford Avenue is like a string of open green spaces along a improved boulevard as a connecting necklace. Our design is going to reinforce this urban pattern. The overall project includes...
Kendra, sorry to interrupt, but I think I'm seeing the wrong slide. I'm seeing master plan building design, or are other folks seeing that?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We're
Sorry,
touching on the buildings. This is master plan building design. Then there'll be a lot of slides on the landscape and the site plan.
Got it.
So
My
this is
apologies.
first. No worries, no worries. Things move around. The overall project includes just over 700 units of housing. Building A includes 2,000 square feet of ground floor gallery and 7 artist live work cell spaces, with a total of 250 units with up to 100 to 120 parking spaces below in 13 stories. Building B includes 123 fully affordable family units with lobby and resident amenity spaces, including a bike repair room. This is phase 1. It will be 7 stories. Building C includes approximately 164 units with indoor youth early childhood education, 14,000 square feet in 9 stories of building, while Building D, furthest on the screen, includes 163 units with indoor youth recreation space, about 46,000 square feet in 9 stories, and buildings D and C include up to 60 parking spaces underneath combined. Building D includes no parking. These proposed buildings range in scale between 7 and 13 stories. Each building is made up of 2 forms with varied architectural character. One at greater height or as a backdrop will buffer and screen the highway, while a second smaller volume will either bracket or bookend the site, depending on its location and orientation. And Mark will share our design updates for the site.
Hey everybody, Mark from Martin Design Group. We are the Lindsay.
Mark, I don't think we can quite hear you, or at least I can't.
Mark, it's the microphone. You gotta the physical microphone.
Flip it down or move it closer.
Okay. All right. So I'm Mark Klupfer, Martin Design Group, landscape architects for the team. So this is just a quick refresh on where we were. So this is showing the original presentation we made back in June of the full BCDC. This is last time's subcommittee a month ago. The next one. And this is the site plan as we have it currently. So the bubbles speak to the things that we've been working on, having a stronger gallery and plaza connection, both to the street and to the open lawn, and kind of expanding the spaces out from building A, which is the furthest left-hand building here. We have expanded the lawn by eliminating some sidewalk space and reconfiguring the parking lot. And on the south parcel, we have started to create this unified plaza that connects the building C and building D, sort of spill out spaces in front of the lobbies that creates a drop-off space for both the buildings as well as the fields. We split the parking so we don't have double-loaded parking right off of New Rutherford anymore, which we think works better. And we've simplified the turnarounds quite a bit in honor of having our buildings be more universally accessible. We've eliminated the stairs, or we've tried to eliminate the stairs everywhere, and have ramps and sloping paths that are going up to the entrances rather than relying so much on stairs. But really the biggest change here is what we've been able to do to the open fields. So by creating a more unified field and sort of changing its shape and being less restricted in terms of some dimensions, we've been able to reconfigure the field and have it accessible from the pathway continuously along the edges of the open field, which you'll see here. So those are really the biggest changes since the last time you've seen it in subcommittee, and coming from comments that we received in the last meeting. Next. So this is a blow up. We're going to look at each parcel individually. So this parcel, you can see the ground floor plans illustrated here, and you can see some of these changes. So there's a lot more yellow in this plan. So all of the plaza spaces that are coming off of building A in particular are much wider. We've made a better connection to the sidewalk from the gallery on New Rutherford Avenue. We have created larger terraces outside the live workspaces, which are the orange blocks in building A. And we've sort of tightened up the plaza here in order to get more lawn space. And so we have a larger open lawn space, but we also have some green where the trees are sort of shading areas. So there's shaded lawn space as well as open lawn space. We've reconfigured the parking. So again, we don't have double loaded parking anymore, and we've eliminated the sidewalk, which was on the north side of that parking. So now the lawn comes directly up to the driveway. In the building B courtyard, we've also reconfigured this to be much more vegetated. So this is a nice shady courtyard that is much more sort of garden-like and filled, whereas the opposite side of building A is more open. And you can also see the public open spaces for the buildings indicated in purple. Next one. These are a couple of the precedents that we're looking at. So this is sort of the character that we're looking for here, a lot of spill out space between the buildings and these green spaces, looking to have them have movable, flexible seating. Stage areas are possible, but also having some fixed seating, either as these kind of stadium seats built into topography or as these sort of bench walls. And we're also thinking about the plaza serving sort of as a social plaza, a place for farmers markets, food trucks, and the like. And we've also been thinking a lot about placemaking art as well. So this is the south parcel, a blow up of that plan. Here you get a sense of the grades. We're trying to really keep the slopes that are necessary in order to communicate to the various streets, pretty much to the service road side of the property. And we've been able to change the finished floor elevation of building D a little bit. So it's come down in elevation. That's allowed us to have better transitions to the sort of enlarged plaza space, as well as the open field. So the big change here is this open space, and this shows a couple of different scenarios for different playing fields of different configurations. So we do fit one large U8 field, two smaller ones, as you can see, as well as small of the micro pitches, which are 3-against-3 or 4-against-4 micro pitches shown this way. So there's lots of different ways this can be configured.
And Mark, you're at about halftime.
These are the precedent images, and it even shows the way that this youth soccer is happening at one of our parks in Brookline, where the micro pitches are sort of deployed on a larger field. But these are some of the characters that we're looking for in the project on the south parcel. And also the early childhood education center will have a sort of play area that looks something like this. And this is what we're thinking about in terms of the plaza space here. Really quickly, these are a couple of diagrams to talk to the program of these spaces. So I've mostly covered these in what I just described. We have one for the north. I'm going to go ahead and show the one to the south. And then I think the next one is sort of the best image that shows where we were last time we presented this to you and where we are now. And one of the things we've really been working on is this kind of transition between the way the building lands and the fields and the landscape and how they're interconnected. And we think we've developed that quite a bit with some of the restrictions that were on the site being lifted and making it a little bit easier for us to make these connections in a more robust way. I think that's it for me.
Well, for the moment, Mark, for the moment. Now we have, so that's our design concept for the master plan. We've developed master plan design guidelines are established. At the scale of the city, the open spaces array and open onto New Rutherford Avenue. And the city, as we know, is exploring enhancing New Rutherford to be a boulevard, and our team is working closely with the city to coordinate that. Mark, do you want to pick this up?
So this is a slide that you've seen before. It basically speaks to all the constraints we have on the site and how the buildings ended up where they are. And they also relate to some of the landscape features and where we've been able to put them. So we can go in more detail if there's questions about it. Similarly, we've really tied this into the Plan Charlestown plan from the planning department. And most significant about this is what Kendra was saying before, that the spaces are really looking out toward Charlestown to the east and also making these shared path connections between the community college, the neighborhood, and the Millers River path. These are two new diagrams that speak to how we're thinking about the character of the North and South. So this was a topic from the last meeting as well, that maybe these two parcels need to be different. So the top image shows that. The diagram is talking about how the North parcel is really seen about arts and culture, and the South is about play and sports. But there's still connectivity between them. So there's a path that happens as a sort of ribbon that happens on both parcels, and they're tethered together with the public street of New Rutherford Ave. This is speaking to the new circulation diagrams, which are similar to the ones we previously showed you that show where the parking works, how vehicular drop-off is really on New Rutherford Ave, and there's service that happens a little bit on Service Road in a much more minimal way, just to make connections to the loading dock and to the parking garage in Building A. And lastly, this is the pedestrian circulation that's really about this ribbon that connects each site or unifies each site, secondary circulation that happens around those, and then again, the public shared path circulation in orange.
Thanks, Mark. Responding to the larger urban character of the city, the master plan design will respond at two scales. First, drawing from the edge buildings at Charlestown's perimeter, the larger backdrop buildings will convey a planar and regular architectural language. Second, the smaller building scale and texture is inspired by the neighborhood fabric, including robust material choices and applications. So the transitional character on all buildings will incorporate contemporary materials. On the smaller volumes, punched openings, detail, and pattern will tie the new buildings to the neighborhood scale and context appropriate for buildings of this size. Building heights will comply with Plan Charlestown, including the taller backdrop volume height raised up towards the highway expressing simple forms, while lower volumes along New Rutherford will respond to the finer detail and conditions. These buildings are related to one another like a family. Each has a role to play. They complement each other and support each other in different ways. Buildings A and B will share a courtyard to host the vibrant arts and culture-related program. Buildings C and D will include community facilities that spill out into the fields to support play and sports, while buildings A and D are bookends framing the overall site, and building A anchors the intersection at the corner of Austin Street and New Rutherford. Buildings B and C, they bracket Middle Road and create a residential scale along New Rutherford, creating a sheltered moment of rest along that busy street. The four buildings' component parts will respond to their programmatic use and their location on the site. The background backdrop buildings will consist of regular pattern facades designed for the larger scale of the highway. All buildings will express a strong base, grouped windows, and attic story. The northern side expresses the arts within, using large format windows and doors to engage and celebrate artist work. The southern site conveys sports and play, utilizing textures and patterns to announce the uses inside. The northern and southernmost buildings A and D frame the site as bookends, while the two interior buildings B and C bracket Middle Road with robust materiality and detail.
About a minute left.
Okay, Mark?
So these you've seen before.
Okay.
This is the character we're looking for.
Yep.
Same here. And one of the things I didn't talk that much about was there are existing placemaking elements that in the bottom left here. There's a wonderful monument to the potato monument, as well as these light fixtures that run underneath the highway as part of the Miller's River Walk. We're hoping to do something similar across the site and have some sort of placemaking that becomes a serial thing between both the north and the south parcels that might have to do with being these sort of tall elements or being illuminated at night. So we want some sort of placemaking to extend what's already started on the site.
Good timing.
Any questions?
Thank you all.
So I have a question. So it seems right now we're just reviewing the master plan. Is that correct, Seth?
Yes, we thought we would do discussion on the master plan and the design guidelines, and then have the proponent present on the architecture of Building B.
You know, it might be nice, I don't know, Shauna and Jonathan, what you think, just to get, you did this for us last time and it was very helpful, but I'd love to understand the architecture in conjunction with the landscape, and I don't know how you guys feel.
I'm totally fine with that. If you want to dive into that, is that possible?
Yep.
And if that's the case, I have a question about, because I know we're only reviewing Building B from a specific design perspective, but are we reviewing all of the landscape from a specific design perspective, or are we just reviewing the parcel right around Building B?
I would frame it as the approach to the landscape. So the basic idea and concept and design guidelines that would carry forward as part of the ADC master plan, and the specific design of that landscape, right, would be delivered later with the buildings themselves. But the proponent is proposing, and I believe they will have a diagram in the next presentation to show what portion of the north parcel is proposed to be developed with Building B and which portion of the site.
To follow up on Shauna's question then, will the implemented design area that's for the landscape come back to BCDC when the building is being reviewed? Okay, so we're
Yes.
really addressing the master plan.
Okay. And I assume Building B is the first phase. Is that correct? Identified as the first building? Okay.
Correct.
I have no preference for the way that we want to review it.
I support what McKim suggested. I'm happy to dive into more specifics of the architecture of B and then come back with more comprehensive comments.
Okay, Kendra and team, if you're
Sure.
amenable, let's dive into the second presentation.
Okay, will do. Yeah, of course, we can certainly come back and we have a fat appendix of additional materials as well. Right, take a breath. So now we have a section on Building B. Building B is adjacent to New Rutherford, Middle and Service Roads. The primary visibility entrance and access will be from New Rutherford Avenue, reinforcing the series of open spaces along the proposed new boulevard. Mitigating between the height of the highway and Cambridge Crossing, the building will step down towards the community scale. I think Commissioner Kim, you had asked, what does this building look like when it's first built as the first phase? I'll note that so this first phase includes 123 all affordable rental units in a mix of studios up to 4-bedroom size family apartments, and Trinity is currently in the midst of discussions for overall site conditions during this interim condition. Phase 1 includes the new building, the adjacent drive, turnaround landscaped courtyard, and open lawn, as well as the adjacent shared path for bikes and pedestrians along 3 sides of the Phase 1 site, along New Rutherford, Middle Road, and Service Road. We've shared that there's only 1 crossing at Middle Road. All pedestrians and bikes will be crossing at New Rutherford For a little background, I'm looking at Jonathan. We're not improving Middle Road or Service Road because it is utilized by an industrial Boston Sand and Gravel, and so there are large radii, and we're just limited on what improvements can be done there. So the pedestrian crosswalk is sort of in line with New Rutherford. The site is well connected to larger Charlestown and to the Orange Line. There is an enhancement plan in the works for New Rutherford that will hopefully create more pedestrian-friendly crossings. Mark, I believe I've got a slide for you.
Great. So this again is the site plan. And I actually want to be a little bit more specific about what Kendra just said. So we're not doing anything with the roadways, but we are improving everything from the back of curb. So along Service Road, Middle Road, and New Rutherford, all the way up to Austin Street or going under, to the edge of Gilmore Bridge, we are redoing all of those streetscapes as part of phase 1.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mark.
Go ahead.
Somebody actually just take their cursor and outline what you
Yeah,
just
that's what I
said?
was just about
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
Okay.
it's because
That
we
would
did
be
have
so
this
helpful.
drawn. I think so. Phase 1.
So
Mark,
while you're talking,
I
Mark,
think
it would
we're.
just be helpful to have somebody just draw. Yeah.
Yes,
Am I
exactly.
doing this right? I'm
Yeah.
doing this right. I'm kind of winging it. Bear
And
with
down the
me.
Service Road and then back to the Gilmore Bridge. Yeah.
So this is
Okay.
phase 1.
Right. So because the adjacency of building A, that section of the Service Road streetscape doesn't make sense to do now, would just be tearing it out in order to build building A. So it does stop at where the drive connection is back to Service Road.
Is that here?
Oh, you have it. That's drawn right.
Oh, I got it.
It's
Okay.
just different from what I had said.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make it clear. So I'm not sure there's much more to say about the building B landscape. It does include the open lawn and the driveways, turnaround court. And the idea of the courtyard for building B is that it's much shadier. Even the way that the plaza and the pathway works is that we've got trees spanning both sides of it. So it's meant to be kind of the opposite of what happens on the other side of the driveway. You have the open lawn. This is intended to be much more sort of shady and green.
I do think it's worth noting, because we have been asked how did the buildings meet the site. We've heard that request. We've incorporated a number of pedestrian access points along this, orienting towards the open space as well as towards the more public realm, as well as including, this building B, doesn't include a lot of additional programming. It's a residential building. We've located the lobby, the amenity spaces, and a bike room, in that most public area along New Rutherford. So getting into the building design a little further, and referring back to the master plan design guidelines, the taller portion of the building sets a backdrop for the new community, portraying a sturdy single-story base and stepping up to the top. The bracket character of the lower stepped volume includes robust masonry detailing and patterns to enliven the scale for the pedestrian. So we've included both the character imagery from the master plan design diagrams and our proposed design for building B that follows through on those. Similarly, following up on the arts and culture expression, we are incorporating vibrant materials and colors on the ground floor to express the arts and culture use in the lobby and the bike room of building B. The building proportions will create a grounded base with contemporary masonry detailing and cast stone, topped by a crisp, clean attic story clad in metal panel. The design takes a transitional approach rooted in Charlestown's architectural character but expressed with a modern sensibility. The 5/2 podium structure offers a cost-effective and durable solution, carrying masonry up to the 5th floor, the maximum allowed by the construction type, and conveys a sense of permanence. Above, the lighter attic story provides contrast and relief through refined detailing. The front bracket volume includes a warm masonry material, while the backdrop building consists of a cooler and lighter tone. Together, these elements will offer early residents a complete and secure home, even as the broader site continues to develop. This is the existing view from Austin Street looking south. The proposed perspective from the same corner presents a welcoming courtyard defined by a warm, textured facade that establishes a sense of place. The top floor amenity aligns visually with the Bunker Hill Monument, establishing a connection with the prominent landmark. The full build includes 6-story volumes lining Rutherford Avenue at the scale of Charlestown, while broad pathways and streetscape markers along New Rutherford will welcome visitors and encourage community engagement, integrating the building into the local cultural landscape. The lawn and plaza offer flexible space for events like art festivals, farmers markets, while the lobby and bike room are adjacent to this open space. As the first phase, this building must stand alone, complete and resilient. It sets a thoughtful tone for the future, which may include more expressive phases, thinking about buildings A and D, the bookends and anchors to the site. Views around the building highlight the robust base with depth and articulation, topped by the attic story. Corner entry anchors the bike lounge, featuring large ground floor windows showcasing this use. Soldier coursing at heads and sills reinforce the regular window spacing. Responding to the large radius curbs, both buildings A and B feature faceted corners that articulate their relationship to the site boundaries. And the building massing is further articulated by an inset, creating a visual break between the front and back forms. The lower bracket volume along New Rutherford is distinctly separated from the taller backdrop behind. Facade depth is further enhanced by masonry patterns and cast stone bands, providing a variety of textures near the pedestrian scale. Following grade at the low point, planters will line the base of the building, protecting the corner entrance at this shared path. Views around the building showcase robust materials with sturdy base and paired vertical windows seated on the cast stone base. This regular rhythm in a planar facade reflects the typical edge building character found throughout Charlestown's perimeter. The contemporary masonry wrap with punched openings is a buffer to the highway. The lawn is designed to be enjoyed year-round, offering flexible open space in all seasons. The offset adjacent parking areas may be repurposed for community events or plaza use, enhancing versatility. Our vision is for this to be a welcoming, active space, inviting residents and the broader Charlestown community to gather, relax, and connect. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to stop share so we can see people, but I will certainly bring it back up.
How can we dive into the architecture?
Maybe you can just
sense?
bring up the latest plan for Jonathan, Kendra.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe just start with the site plan.
Sure.
If you could, just a basic. I think one that showed you had all 4 buildings.
On the site plan?
Yes.
Sure. So I have to find my.
I think it was one where you had the program colors and you could see lobby and other spaces, bike room.
Was it from the master plan presentation?
No, I think it was in the beginning of this one too. Yes, this is fine. This is good. The one on the, oh, you just had it.
There you go. Sorry. Oh.
Yeah, this is good. So, and actually, maybe we can focus here, but I did see it in the master plan one. I was just curious about your thoughts on edge definition and sort of this idea of connective tissue between the four. I mean, I'm still looking at them as four. I know that we're focusing on B, but when you made the point, Kendra, something about A, B, C, and D are like a family,
Yeah.
I was curious about what are those visual cues. I congratulate you on things like the gallery, the early childhood education, but as I look at Middle Road and there's like the bike room right at the corner, I'm just struggling to understand like the programmatic synergy that that might create in terms of the public realm, daytime, evening
Yeah.
activity. And further on, my question is, what do you envision Middle Road to feel like? Because of all spaces, that feels like the space where you mentioned quiet, respite, but I'm just a little concerned that it won't
Oh,
have the vibrancy and how does the connective tissue between, these edges, mainly the
yeah.
ones in purple, talk to the A and B across the street there.
So A, right, how it communicates with building A across the open space. I think, Jonathan, I think that where our buildings have to face inward, right, on the southern parcel and the northern parcel. We're essentially turning our back on Service Road and Middle Road because there are large concrete trucks that go down it regularly all day. So
Okay.
we envision the respite and the peace is really sort of in the courtyard zones, whereas Middle Road is there's a bike path. We're creating buffers and plantings there, but there's no place to go there. I think
Okay.
initially
That's helpful.
in early schemes we had bump outs, we had complete streets, we had a bike path along the MBTA, orange line back there under the highway, and unfortunately we've had to sort of step back from those sort of ideal goals in light of the reality of the constraints.
Okay, so that paints a more
Yes,
clear picture of the diagram in my mind, or
yes,
the call it urban design response. It seems like you're saying A talks to B by way of
yes,
the internal green space and the edges there, and then C talks to D in the same way, but they're intentionally buffering each other because of
right,
the context of Middle Road and Service Road that you can't it just is a given.
yes,
Um, yeah, so on that note, I would maybe suggest a diagram at the beginning of your next showing that really just makes that
sure.
urban design response clear, because I think that's a powerful
Yeah,
way that it seems like an anchor to your entire approach here.
yep.
Um, looking at, and maybe if you can just flip to a rendering of B on the facade. Um, yeah, just one that shows, I think you had,
Oops.
this is good. This is great. That one. If you go back one, this one here. Once again, want to congratulate you on this idea of brick texture and detail and refinement. I think the image just before this, when you had the kind of sectional quality and you were really, you could see the richness and the breakup from bottom to top. Um, One thing that strikes me, and maybe it's this view, and you had another one that really set the building in context, is to me, it's a relatively small building compared to the others. I am curious as to the two, almost like there's a there's two material palettes going
Yep.
on, and I'm just wondering why there needs to be two material palettes. I could see in the realm of simplification, maybe there's one material palette, but there's two ways of deploying it. In other words, a thought about maybe there's an outer jacket. Is there a response that talks to the broader urban external realm, and then something that talks to the residents in the internal courtyard
Mm.
realm? So there's like an outer heftier coat, and then a softer, simpler, lining on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think that might provide some flexibility in how you work with the brick and with the metal. I like the use of brick and metal. I absolutely agree that brick should be at the base of the building and up so it grounds the massing, and metal should be higher. But I'm just wondering, maybe there's a distinction between in and out versus smaller volume and larger volume.
We could certainly look at that. I think this is a direction we've been encouraged to go in, treating the rear volume separate from the front. I think that's it has grown naturally out of through the conversations. And you're right, Jonathan, it's not a large building, so I'm not sure how many layers we want to include.
Right.
But we could certainly look at that as well, because
Okay.
there is,
Yep.
right, there is an outer, there's an outer shell of sorts, but we're also trying to respond to all the different sides. We can certainly look at the inner courtyard versus outer shell as well.
Yeah. Okay. It's just a response to my, just looking even at the image on the top left there, the yellow diagrams of A, B, C, and D. It just seems to me building B is the smallest of them all. And so my immediate reaction is, it's not that large. But if it's something you can look at, I think that might go. And then I think my last comment is about the chamfered corners. And I see in A, there's a little bit more than just a chamfered corner. It's almost like a hexagonal volume that begins to come into play. And I'm a little worried about the chamfered corner. I just wonder, I saw earlier in some notes from prior meetings I wasn't at, there was a comment about thinking about how can the architecture be more daring. I interpret that to maybe mean how can it be more dynamic. And so when I'm looking at corners, I get the corner of where you have New Rutherford and Middle Road. It seems like that chamfer is a direct response to the curved linearness of the corner of the site. But I do question the chamfer at the lobby amenity of B. Especially on the upper floors. I could see the chamfer at the lower floor as maybe a way to receive people in. Maybe that's the front door. But up above, I think exploring just a full 90-degree corner might create a little bit more of a spatial and visual dynamism. To me, the chamfer really flattens out the facade at a critical point in the massing. And so I would just encourage you to maybe look at what that might do.
Sure. You don't think it balances the response along New Rutherford?
I mean, I don't. I honestly think if you go back to, so like when you see it in A, it just seems like there's a lot of chamfers going on. And they're not acute. They're fairly wide. And I just, I worry about how they just seem to do something where they flatten out what otherwise could be a pretty dynamic sense of shapes.
So Jonathan, just to be, do you mean this chamfer here, or do you mean this chamfer on building A?
Well, I'm not talking about A. I am talking about that first chamfer you mentioned on B.
On B. Okay.
Right.
All right.
But to be clear, I do think as we get to A in a futuristic world, to me that has almost a hexagonal shape, which I also would think could be problematic.
I might jump in now because I do have a couple of comments about the architecture, although most of them are really focused on the landscape. First of all, I haven't seen this project for a couple of meetings, and I think on both fronts, it's come a very, very long way. So, you've clearly put in a lot of work, and I'm really impressed with that. So while we're still on the architecture, though, I think there's a couple things that I wanted to say. I know this view is good, and so is the same view when we zoom in a little closer. I understand from an economy perspective the tightness of everything, but it feels a little tight. The relief, the sort of consistency of the windows, the detailing is very nice once you get in there, but from a distance, there's no elevation change between the brick and the attic level within it. Some of your examples are actually, if you go back, and I know there is a cost to this. Could you, I don't think the slides are numbered, so I couldn't. Yeah, let's go back. And there's another slide goes here. Obviously the example that you're using here of the bracket character is substantially more expensive than the proposed bracket, the 2 slides on the top as well as the 2 slides on the bottom. But looking for some level of ways to express an aberration from this really, really tight verticality, I think would be really helpful to the project. But again, I think, as I said, I think your detailing, once you really zoom in on your perspectives, is very, very lovely. I think that the one thing, and maybe let's go to the first phase, to the core thing just being by itself. And I expect you don't know the duration yet between the, could we just see it in context by itself? Yeah, so this is your first building on the site. It's in a very different context than it will be eventually. I don't know how many years it will be in this condition, but it doesn't, if this is supposed to be the artist side and really taking the first stride, I think that there could be, or maybe not should be, but could be an opportunity to express that more than the coloration of the bike racks. Maybe it's something at the lobby, maybe it's something on the attic layer, but somehow giving a little bit of, I'm not just a building that's being displaced from somewhere else, kind of claiming the territory a little bit. It may even be a one of the placemaking strategies or something to kind of signal excitement that it isn't, it's quite a nice quiet fabric building, but there's no fabric around it for a while. And then the other thing that I'm going to mention, and these are all, I know, really challenging things for many strategies, is if we can go to the plan of this building, and then I'll go to the landscape for a minute. But that was a lovely perspective we were on. But if we could, yeah, this is very lovely. But I just wanted to
looking
plan
for the plan. Yes,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get there.
That's okay. I know there's a lot of slides in here.
There are.
I can start talking while you're looking for it, but
How's
it's the discussion that we were just talking about Middle Road. The plan that you were on just a second ago is fine. It can be the overall site plan or any plan that, what I'm really looking at is units, the ground level units on Middle Road. And is there, and I don't know if there's any possibility of, of somehow shifting the massing a little bit of those on the ground level, to, I'll just wait until you get there.
Yep, I'm almost there.
Yeah, good, perfect. But that's a pretty tough condition. We only have it. We have the green buffer of the street trees, and then the concrete trucks rolling by you all the time. So I appreciate that they're larger units because they give space that you can back away. But wondering if there was any possibility of pushing those units back a little bit to put some level of green buffer between the sidewalk and the green space, just to make them a little bit more inhabitable in the way that you've kind of wrapped it along the service road. I know, again, it's affordable housing, it's tight, but that's something that I think I would try to consider, just given how the conditions of the concrete tracks.
Yep. Could I just mention, we have incorporated a green strip along New Rutherford. That's new. We managed to work that in, I think, since you saw it last. There is a grade change, a significant grade change. So the residential units along Middle Road and Service Road are elevated pretty significantly. That is shown in the sections that are included at the back of the project. We'll certainly look at trying to incorporate additional green space there. We did prioritize putting it along the tree planting strips in order to maximize that zone.
Yeah, that protection. I appreciate that. And I'd like to, before we might as well stay on this slide for a second and then kind of go
Yeah.
to the overall, but I'm switching to open space. I think the open space is really come a long way. And I think the opening up of the freedom of the overall ball fields is a major component of it. One of the things that you didn't talk at all about, Mark, and I know you were sort of blasting through it, was the character of these interior sort of Werner drive spaces, which I think is very, very nice. Like I'm assuming that that's what these are because I see the paving on it. One of the things that I think will be key to the success of that is the management of the parking, which I think should be really explicit in the guidelines that it's whatever it is, like 15 minutes only, except for when there's loading and unloading, because I think that the elimination of the sidewalk along the lawn is um, is great to get that extra real estate, but only really works if because everybody's going to be walking down the shared vehicular way. So only really works if there's clear management. Because if somebody's coming from the right going to building A, of course they'll do a diagonal across that. So, but I think or probably more so the other direction coming from the left going to building B. But I appreciate it and support it. I just think that being really explicit with your management, with your traffic management and the guidelines is important. A super minor thing on this slide is if we could continue the sort of thick green buffering along on Service Road, right in that little green, right at the very bottom, the green buffer right next to the parking, tiny little space there. Just having some, if possible, some planting, because I am, as I sort of said in the past, very concerned about the particulates for the pedestrians, particularly on the ball fields. So maybe if we could move to the overall big plan of both and then I can sort of talk more generally about the landscape. I may have talked about most of the things, but I really wanted to applaud the development of it. I think it really has helped a lot to not to be beholden to the ball fields in their sort of rigid structure, having a more flexible strategy. And most of what I wanted to hear is to really complement the landscape. I think the thickness of the green planting all around the edge is really, really helping. I think that and really appreciate the just as much as possible really thickening these edges again from the particulates, but also just because it is a tough environment visually and experientially, and so really wanting to protect it as much as possible. I think the berming where you're doing it, there's maybe a little bit of sort of awkwardness around with the oval around building C, but that's for a later time. And then what is the yellow? Is it concrete? Is it?
It's probably going to be a paver, just so that it's differentiated, especially where you're, crossing the driveways. I'm not sure we're promising that the driveways are going to be pavers. And I think that that's
Okay.
something that we've been working through with, with the subcommittee as well as just internally, that there's going to be a fair amount of in and out on these driveways. So it's not really a Wooner. And I think that's something we established in the June meeting, because we just think that because all the passenger cars must use the driveways. Like it's really important to our abutters that Service Road and Middle Road are really used by them. They are state streets, state roads. And so really the driveways are serving everything. So in these diagrams, we're
Okay.
sort of showing the idea the passenger cars come in and go out on New Rutherford. And the only passenger vehicles that go on the service road are the ones that are going to the garage in building A. Similarly,
Okay. So
with the
So-
loading scenarios are sort of the same. If it's a small truck like a FedEx or something, they're probably using the driveway. So we really have segregated the
Hmm.
vehicles from the pedestrians because I think there's just too much volume for it to be a true Wooner. So that's why we have the sort of raised tables that you see in the yellow boxes here.
Okay, so I actually only was looking at the bottom diagram when you were going through the quick flip. So I understood that they were only for service, but or for the, what it says in blue, but
Yeah, yeah.
And
okay, so
Shauna, I can confirm that the uh, planning department's transportation staff felt very strongly, they were concerned about pedestrian safety if this were sort of all treated as a Woon Earth given the traffic volumes. And so we certainly encourage the proponent to head in this direction, defining the crossing moments of the driveway.
yeah, no,
So-
if everybody is using it regularly, that doesn't make any sense. And if the traffic department's fine with the anticipated use of the walkway along the edge, then or the walkway just on the one side. I know you can get from the corner, but it's not really if you're coming from the left and going to building B, I don't think you'll use a sidewalk. You could, but anyway, that's something.
So if I could just pick up where Shauna left off with the yellow and the brown mark.
Mhm.
I would like to see within these design guidelines some parameters for what those things are. I know this is still at the master plan level, but to maybe have a page of guidelines of materiality for the landscape, just so that we understand the quality and the level. So we're not asking for a detailed paving plan, but something that tells us, I was surprised when you said all the roadways are pavers, so you might want to think about that before you commit to it, but we would want, I think as a commission, we would want to know that all future development within this master plan has to comply. We know that you guys will do a nice job, but that as it moves forward in the master plan, that there are guidelines that not only your team follows, but in future phases that everything feels cohesive. So I would love to see something for, just basic narratives of the different pedestrian versus vehicular paving, sidewalk, streetscape paving, just like a sentence or two that basically locks in this master plan in terms of materiality. Some other questions I have just at the master plan level is,
Sorry, McCann, can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because I just want to follow up on your point. If
sure.
these are not shared streets, should there be a page like this that's called shared ways?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think maybe you're straddling between the old Woonorf idea and this, and to clarify that. And I always think of these design guidelines as like they should be clear to even folks who
Mhm.
are not deeply engaged with the project. So I think to really think about this, because right now the only shared ways are where you have that yellow box. Is that correct in these diagrams?
Yeah, I think this title is misleading. I mean,
Yeah, no,
this
I
is
get
actually
it.
about vehicles, not
Yeah,
shared ways for sure.
okay. Okay, so maybe you could just give us some of your thoughts and kind of lock in some just very high level paving things.
Yeah.
So Sean, I just wanted to bring that up while you're talking about it,
No,
but
that's fine,
well,
McCann. I just
are you,
go ahead.
do you
You can
have any other
continue.
thoughts? I don't want to stop you. So
No. Go ahead. I can add
okay.
things on at the end if I think of other things.
Okay, these are what I love about subcommittee is their conversation. So Shauna, definitely I hate that we all just talk, we stop, and then so I wanted to ask a dumb question, Seth, and to the development committee and maybe to Kendra. Can we go back to the image of what phase one looks like? Because I think that foreground of phase one is sort of white. And I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to understand better the ownership of property. I know there could be a long period of time between phase one and phase two. what is there now? And I guess I'll just ask the question, which is there any way that you can actually just seed that area so that it's green? And that's asking a commitment, but I think it would just strengthen the project in the short term. I see it all the time. It's a very low cost, and I feel very sad when I see that kind of white blob in the front, because I feel like as long as before the second building comes in, this will truly look like an unfinished project. But I think there could be very simple things you can do, such as just seeding the whole corner. Especially if we get as much rain as we have lately, it will just like sprout up. And that's like, I'm going to exaggerate. It's like $3 a square foot or something. So would love to, when you come back, kind of, you can talk amongst yourself as a proponent team, but if you can make that commitment and if that's allowable based on zoning, maybe you could just put a little more green on this corner for us so that we can feel like, oh, okay, building B can stand on its own for 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, and feel like it's offering its constituents something.
I'll just mention one thing here and then let Abby continue. I would say that the city is very interested in sort of early activation and use of these sites. I think, as you know, this is a city land RFP, and there's certain mechanics to the land disposition itself and the commitments that the developer has, and Abby can offer some more insight on the specifics of the real estate conversations with the city. But I think we're interested to see what could happen, particularly in the North Lot.
Yes, just to echo Seth's comments, right now we are contemplating 4 separate ground leases with the city. So we would take down each phase as we have the permitting and financing in place. It's not just seeding the parking lot, it's pulling up the pavers, it's any potential contamination, it's ongoing maintenance, liability. So this, I'm sure you know, this first phase is 100% affordable housing. We are subject to major cost controls from the city. So it's an ongoing conversation. We would, as a development company, we would love to do that. We just need to work through how that looks with the city, because Trinity will not be owning that portion of the site.
Yeah, I think, Seth, if this could be an ongoing conversation, I think before the next meeting, it would be great if you could just draw a little bit more specifics, because I was surprised to hear there's parking here, and I'm not as familiar with this neighborhood, just to show us like what is here in this first phase. So we would really appreciate that. But I totally get
Certainly.
it. It's the complexity of ownership of property and zoning and all that stuff. I think our job is always to say, how do we make this as effective of a project over the long term as we can? And then if we could just go to
If there's
the
any
go
just
ahead.
on this thought and like in the spirit of conversation,
Yeah.
if there isn't something that can be done with the actual site, if there's like an edge, if there's sort of an artist hoarding or some, Catherine may have some ideas about that, but some way to just kind of edge that green space a little bit more in the short term, so that it feels like when you're in the green space, it doesn't feel like there's just this leading out into the parking lot.
So sounds like maybe this is a city developer conversation, but I think it would be a great opportunity. I don't know, Catherine, if you have any thoughts on this.
Thoughts, but I'm always glad to hear you all talk. It's like taking a class. Um, green space in our city is rare, and when it does exist, it's a gift. And how to make that green space welcoming, preserved, taken care of, so that all folks feel welcome to that space. I have an initial question as I'm trying to understand between the buildings is that are there any and please forgive me if I don't have the right language, but if I'm walking across the pavers, am I walking directly onto the grass or is there like a barrier where I can step up and onto the open field? I'm just trying to understand those edges actually.
Hmm.
So from the drive aisle, there'd be a curb up to the open lawn space. We
Okay.
we we had a sidewalk there and were asked to remove that in the sort of hopes to have as much green space as possible. So originally that driveway had sidewalks on both sides of it.
Okay.
But Mark, now would you say it's more like that lower right image where you have the walking surface and then right to grass?
Yeah, although it's not a Wooner, so that drive surface where the 24-foot dimension string is, that's going to be 6 inches lower than the green space, so you don't have vehicles popping up the curb and going onto the
Oh,
field.
that's an important, okay, so there will be a vertical granite curb there,
Yeah,
six
Okay.
inch. Okay, that's
yeah.
helpful.
Mhm.
I think the image is showing sort of pedestrian pavements in the bottom image.
Yeah, until
Okay.
you said that, I thought it was sort of flush, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you
Yeah. No,
mentioned that.
I mean, I think we need to clarify all this. And I also want to clarify that I don't think I said that the drive pavements were going to be pavers because I don't think they will be. The
Okay,
Yeah.
because I
pedestrian
think I might have
pavement,
misheard you when you,
yes,
you may have
the
not,
question
you
was
may
the
have said,
paths, and I said they were
okay.
pavers.
Okay,
Do want to make
so
that clear.
it could just be like annotated
Yeah.
leaders to the drawing, but I
Yeah.
had the same question that Shauna had, which is what is the yellow and what is the commitment of this master plan? So I think that makes sense that the yellow is some kind of maybe a concrete paver or a mix of concrete pavers and PIC or something, and then of
Yeah.
course, if you could afford for the drive to be concrete instead of asphalt, that would be wonderful as well. Um, Along the line of like having like a slide of just like paver materials and then just guidelines, it would be also, you may have already done this. I've seen this project a few times, so I may have forgotten, but to have just like a narrative about streetscape guidelines as well like
Mhm.
is it so that all the streetscapes are consistent from project to project, and if you can kind of point to like native what blah 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 blah, all that stuff, Mark. So non-invasive species, all that stuff. um could we go to the overall master plan, because I think there's just one other thing, because I agree with Shauna as you're finding it, that, Mark, I think that the overall plan has become a lot more simple and cohesive. And so I applaud you guys for that. I think that's great. There's one little element that I'd love to just ask a question about. And when Kendra brings up like both sides as the overall master plan. Um, but I think getting the yellow to feel like a cohesive ribbon. Now I see the ribbon. So I totally get it. And I like the open field, not being a kind of imposition of a rectangle. I am wondering whether the edge along New Rutherford along on this master plan needs to be stepped as it is, or whether it could actually have more of a parallel relationship with Rutherford. Because I feel like with your diagram, you could fit the kind of programmatic elements, and there's something about it feels like the old scheme, the pieces of the old scheme remaining from the new scheme.
Mhm.
So it's just something to consider. And yeah,
So I will just want to respond to that. So
yeah.
we looked at it that way, and
Uh-huh.
actually, I think it's much richer this way. Partially because it just starts to set up spaces that are, they're not really ordered by a field size or anything like that. But, in the last committee, when I guess I call him Commissioner Fred, he asked me the question, if New Rutherford Avenue were to be something different, like a boulevard, would that change our scheme? I thought that was an excellent question. And I think one of the things I really like about the scheme is the way that it transforms if that comes to pass. That
Mhm.
the places where the vegetation sort of narrows down, we would cut those out, and you actually have more transparency to New Rutherford. Because it's not going to be this horrible thing anymore. If we can actually give the street a road diet and put some street trees here, which aren't possible now because there's a duck bank running exactly where you'd want to put the street trees. But presumably, if you're doing a road diet, that won't be the case anymore, and you can actually move the curb out and get street trees in there. There might also be, parked cars, like Memorial Drive was what I'd sort of summoned up as a good example of that. To give a physical buffer from traffic that's moving much faster, even if this does become sort of a surface road like the surface artery roads are downtown. I think there's something nice about all of a sudden there's going to be this more like regular pattern of these connections that are made in the future. And that's part of the futuring of this plan, as well as just, I think it makes the space just read like 3 subspaces or something. It starts to define each individual part as a separate space that I sort of like. I mean, we looked at it both ways. It just seems like it's an extrusion if you make it parallel.
Yeah,
So I
I
think
I
there's
hear what you're
something.
saying, Mark. I'm wondering maybe, so I retract what I just said, and maybe because I like the idea that you're breaking up this open field into maybe 3 subsets, right? I think that's a clever idea. But maybe right now it feels it's the shape of it. Just I'll be a formalist for a second. It's that its rectilinearity doesn't actually relate to the geometry of the sidewalk. Like it makes these awkward corners and then it doesn't relate to your new ribbon. And so maybe there's a way in which it doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle, or it could angle slightly. You could still get that read of the edges, but you don't have to make it. Because when I first saw the plan, I thought, oh, he's trying to make 3 fields. Uh, and so I just take a look at that edge because there's something about it that feels, I like the idea. It feels still a little diagrammatic. And if there's a way in which you can kind of make it relate more to the ribbon and more to the kind of framing of the open field and the ribbon, and then make it relate a little bit more to the sidewalk. And that would be my only comment, because I think overall everything has been strengthened here.
I'm not 100% in agreement with McYoung, but but something you guys can look at going forward. I guess the thing that I would like to know, not now, but as the project comes forward, not only the character of the yellow, but what else, what's happening in the yellow, what furniture is, what furniture is where. Because it does, and I don't actually think I do see tables and chairs, but being sort of more kind of specific as to, do we have more specificity on building B for the open space? Like on
So,
the furnishing kind of side of things?
right, building B really has a lot of circulation space. So we're proposing a fixed bench along the edge of there's, go back to the blow up, Kendra.
Because I think sort of following from Mick Young's discussion about the palette strategy and the guidelines, understanding the kind of furnishing strategy for the project throughout, I think would also be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Mark.
no, it's okay. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just going to add to this idea of site furnishing. I mean, I just struck me when I saw the overall both plans with the fields. There's probably a significant exterior lighting component to this projects, and even potentially different types of lighting, because I don't know to what degree you're thinking about athletic field lighting and dusk to dawn and private versus public and all of that, and light pollution. And then you've got a sort of a different, more arts and cultural related open lawn here. But I would just be curious, in your next showing, just what is your approach to lighting and the distinctions of different types of lighting? Because I think it's going to play an important role.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think that's a really important thing. Maybe you already have this, but we're all kind of looking for maybe some guiding principles for the landscape. Not specific furnishing cut sheets, but like just overall guiding principles that can guide future teams if you guys don't build the whole thing. Yeah.
And then I just would circle back to one comment I made earlier about this diagram shows it well, the octagonal and chamfered corners. I will say I don't mind them at the ground floor. I think that they add a level of dynamism and playfulness, and there's I don't know, an interesting dynamic with how they shape the open space, particularly the gallery with that looks like lawn. The lawn actually looks like it's like speaking to the orientation of the gallery. I could imagine like an outdoor movie night or some theater or some production in the lawn. I think I sort of love that idea. It's just really, does that massing need to go up and define the skyline as well and be the volume of the residential buildings? And that's where I think it could be really interesting to have a juxtaposition with some angular edges above. It creates soffit opportunities below, which is also another way to get some lighting in there at the pedestrian realm. It just, to me, adds a level of dynamism that I'm not yet seeing, but I think the bones are right and the opportunity seems like it could be there.
I think given this project
go
is
ahead.
coming back to BCDC as, Seth, you had said this, right, as a series of projects, I feel comfortable kind of maybe we can beef up the master plan a little bit with some of the guiding principles and parameters that we talked about, but I think that I don't feel the need for additional detail for the landscape in particular. I think that it's been really advanced in a positive way.
Yeah, and similarly on the architecture, I think where I'm coming from are nuances. Again, I think the placement of things, the bones are right. Kendra, I think you explained, in my mind, brought clarity to the relationship between A and B versus C and D, and why Middle Road is the way it is and Service Road is the way it is. So these are just like edge definition refinements, which could happen, even with proviso.
Right, with the planning department or
commission.
something.
That's right,
Yeah,
with staff.
I
Yeah.
think with staff, yeah.
I'm extremely supportive of the overall landscape approach and of the master plan level of the open space. I'm not as convinced as the specific detailed design of the landscape of B, sort of because we don't know what the paving material is. We don't really know what the furniture is. Are the proportions exactly what you want to do? I still think I think the project is in really good shape, but I do think, given the level that we would typically be looking at a building at this stage, and I have great
am I
faith in.
misunderstanding? Is the landscape for building B, we're approving that as okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah, just what they are proposing to deliver in phase one.
I mean,
So
Sean, I think you're
if
right.
you
Usually we
redraw,
see a lot more detail of the landscape, but I think that Mark, you could kind of zoom into this landscape, right? For the next meeting. I would feel comfortable with that. The only other suggestion I'd make, Seth, is because Mimi had such a big presence in the architectural comments, and I think Jonathan's great, but you've done this with me before, which I've always really appreciated, is that before this proponent group goes to any further meetings, whatever meetings they are, it might be helpful if you're in agreement to have Mimi just review it and give you a few comments so that there aren't any surprises if this goes back to a committee meeting or you've done that with me and I've found it very helpful. And I hope that the proponent has as well when I can't quite make the last subcommittee or the subcommittee meeting. So
and we did actually have a chance to touch base with Mimi today in a non-deliberative session. It was just typical coordination that we do with the chairs prior to the meetings, and previewed the materials that we sent you all, ahead of time. So she did see this. I will let her relay those comments, but
and that those comments could be brought back to the proponent team. And giving them ample time to respond as well. Shauna, how do you want to handle the
Maybe
building
before
B
we talk about next
landscape?
steps, we can see if there's any public testimony.
Well, Seth, before we get there, Shauna, how do you want to resolve? Because I do agree with you. Because this is so merged with the master plan, I got a little confused. But if this team had come with just building B, I would have felt like I need more information.
Well, that's what I think. If we were just looking at building B as the project, I think the landscape needs more detail. We can discuss this after the public comment, how we want to.
Yeah, let's think
how we
about
want
it.
to.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't have my full script here, but at this time, we'd like to solicit any comments from the public. If you are dialing in by phone, please press *9 and then *6 to raise your hand, or use the raised hand function within the Zoom application. And maybe, Kendra, if you could take the slide down while we do this. Please state your name and any relevant project affiliation information, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes. I am seeing a hand. Let me elevate. Dan, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, this is a great project. This is Dan Jaffe. I'm a Charlestown resident and a transit advocate for the community. This project is great. I like what's being done. The only concerns I have is the transportation elements of the people that live here, as well as the people that need to travel through here. I understand Boston Sand and Gravel have concerns, and I'm hoping that we can address some of those concerns because the service road needs to go all the way through to the Miller's Creek pathway. That really is important for not only the community but also this site. And then on the other side of the Gilmore Bridge, underneath it, ideally a continuation of the pathway into the transit space of the Charlestown Community College there. That space there really needs underneath the bridge space a entry into the station so that it's easier for the people that live here so they don't have to cross the heavy traffic of Gilmore, which is a better pathway for them as well as for the community as a whole trying to get in and out through a bicycle pathway as well as a microtransit solution, which they all know about here. But we need to press the city and the state to make better transit choices that gets us off of cars. And bicycling and walking are more important than anything here. So, but we want to be sure that this community space is integrated into the rest of the core of the community. Otherwise, it becomes a silo, and we don't want that.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your comment. Are there any other public comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and turn it back to the commissioners for discussion on possible next steps.
So I feel comfortable proposing, see how my fellow commissioners feel, to have this project go back to full commission with a few caveats. So one, it's because we all know Mark and their talented design team that we see a detailed plan of the parcel B with maybe a programming diagram of parcel B. And then to consider some of the comments that both architectural and landscape, Seth, I'm sure you've written them down, just to show us that they've been that they've been considered, right? Like that the comments that have been received today are not dismissed. But in the interest of making this is such an impactful project, just to, in the full committee meeting, show a little bit of process, since there were still some comments, both for landscape and for architecture, that I think were brought up that I'd just like to see. We're just talking right now, and I would just like to see whether it makes the project better. There's nothing significant, I think, that was brought up today. And then there were some comments, I think, that we could say that the proponent group continue to work with the planning department to resolve these issues. It's not a statement, so somebody else needs to edit that down for me.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to know what the answer is, but we've done this on other committees. I do think it's only fair to all the other proponents that we ask that the landscape is at the same level as a single building would be. And this is where I would put it on the proponents that I would support coming back to full commission, but if you feel it would be beneficial to do another subcommittee, really just focusing on some of the comments that we've had about the architecture and the landscape, that would be in your court. But I do think that the landscape needs to be taken to more detail. And as I said, I'm very supportive of the team, and I'm very supportive of the landscape approach. I have every confidence, but I would like to see more detail, which could be in a subcommittee or.
Here's a recommendation, Shauna, and Seth, tell me if this makes sense. Because this is being coupled with a master plan, could the proponent team submit a more detailed landscape kind of 3-page document to Shauna and myself to review before the full? Is that too much work for you guys? So that we're not seeing it for the first time at the full committee meeting.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful here with the non-deliberative sessions outside of the formal commission meetings. But if I can make a suggestion, there's unlike the final recommendation, there's no formal provisos. But we certainly, like every subcommittee, keep a running list of all the improvements and suggestions made during commission. So certainly refinement in both building design and site, and specifically the comments with a more detailed plan, a programming diagram and programming design, adding these additional layers into the design guidelines, as well as the final resolution for the site and building for B. There was an interest in better understanding what the potential interim conditions could be at the completion of phase 1 before the other phases happened, and some further refinement of the architectural language and studies there. So I think these are things that staff can all work with the proponents on, and then look to get the commission an advanced draft of the final presentation, if you all agree to move it to full commission as quickly as we can.
If I can just add one piece to that, I think it is totally reasonable to ask the landscape team to add more landscape definition within the scope of work of the phase 1, building 1 limit of work boundary. And that's sort of a recommendation to Shauna and McKim. I'm curious, when you say definition of the landscape, I don't think we're directing them to do all, both sites A, B, C, D. We're really just talking about the limit of work that Kendra had outlined under B, more definition of that, so that it's on par with the level of definition we saw for the architecture.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Seth, what the list you made was right. And the proponent team has seen other teams bring forward landscape plans. And we get a sense of paving information, furnishings, benches. And then we usually see like a kind of vegetated strategy of like trees and ground cover. And so it's less reliant on precedent imagery and more on the proposal itself. So I think, I don't know. I think I think I still feel we can allow for this to go forward, but I've seen this once this year. There's a risk when things go forward to full commission, premature. We're not the only landscape architects on the commission, or urban planners. And just want to impress upon the team, you have to bring this to the next level, because I think we won't be the only ones asking those questions.
I think
My only concern, Shauna, is like our fellow commissioners will be like, you've never seen this detailed plan before. But I guess we can defend ourselves.
The process of doing a master plan and a building at the same time. This is the first time I've done this.
Yeah.
Done lots of buildings, but not a master plan and a building at the same time. So I think we're happy to provide more detail and actually have a lot of thoughts about both furnishings and lighting and all that. But we need to know that the master plan is like nailed down more or less so that we aren't continuing to just like change the overall diagram and the master planning idea. So I think this is something we could definitely provide.
I have full confidence, Mark, that you guys will be able to bring this forward. I still ask for you to look at the second site and maybe come up with an alternative option on how you create those precincts along the streetscape. Just curious how that master plan might work. But I feel comfortable, Seth, if we could have a preview, not the day before, but maybe like the Friday before, so that we have a little time to review it. I don't know.
Yes,
I'm
certainly.
fine.
We can certainly do that, and certainly planning department staff will work with the proponent and the design team to advance all of these categories. So if
I just wanted to say I agree with McYoung, but one other piece of guidance is I really like it and I understand, you need a comfort level. I think the overall, based on our relatively small sampling here, I think there's a comfort level with the master plan. But I think that the building B parcel needs to be presented as the building B parcel, not because it is sort of confused. It's kind of confused, like McYoung was, for example, a little bit confused if we were approving the landscape at the same level we would a typical project. So I think to present it, summary of the master plan, and then just present this as a standalone project.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
you guys were going to do that, and I kind of blurred them. But I think, Seth, that list that you listed, I guess I know we don't vote in subcommittee, but I would advocate to bring this project forward, and that, Seth, when you present the project to the full commission, you kind of make the list, or that the proponent group kind of makes that their first slide so that everybody remembers. And
yep, very much agreed.
but I do want to say to the proponent group, I do feel like the project has gotten simpler, stronger, clearer, and it's a tough site. So I do appreciate all of the thought that's gone into this.
Yep, I agree with all of that. And coming in, seeing it for the first time, it's got some really good bones. It's a good project.
Right.
Great. Any final thoughts from the commissioners or comments? So at this time, and in lieu of a formal vote, it's my understanding that the proposed project is recommended for final consideration. And so planning department staff will work with the proponent very closely on all of these and bring this back to the full commission when we think it is ready.
Can I make a recommendation to the proponent group, is that the first slide should be all the meetings you've attended, all the subcommittee meetings you've attended. There are some new commissioners, there are commissioners who haven't seen the project, and to give them a little bit of context. And for Seth to say, and also Mimi has seen this along with Jonathan, and the proponent group has actually integrated some of Mimi's comments, even though she was not in attendance to this meeting. Just double underwear.
Yep.
We have nice
Helpful.
bookends. We were the last project that Bill Ron saw and the first project that Jonathan sees, so it's great.
Yes.
Right,
It is.
right.
Nice.
We have some nice new commissioners,
That
so
is
we're
good.
all excited. Great. Well, thank you so much to everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thank you to the project
Bye,
team, and
everyone.
as always,
Thanks.
commissioners, thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night, everybody.